Oh, good. Thank you. We ready?
How you doing?
All right. Good evening. I want to call the December 16th Select Board meeting to order. We've just moved out of executive session. Thanks for your patience. We're running a little bit behind. First order of business tonight is a Select Board, Planning Board joint meeting to discuss the Housing Production Plan update. So welcome, Planning Board and your consultant. We all have had a chance to review the Housing Production Plan, the executive summary, and all the details. I don't know, Taylor or Beth, if you want to tee it up for what we're hoping to accomplish this evening, but thanks all for being here and for your patience with us starting a little late.
Thanks, Michelle. So we've had, I guess, maybe 12 months, a little bit longer process. We've been working with MAPC as our consultant. There was an advisory group that was put together to work on updating the town's housing production plan. The last plan was adopted and approved by the state just over 5 years ago, and so we're required every 5 years to update the plan. And so we're really at the tail end of the process right now. I think Carlos from MAPC was here before the board in July, I think it was, to give an update. Since then, we've had a couple advisory group meetings. We've had a public comment period on a final draft of a plan, and we've made some revisions before that based on feedback from the advisory committee. So I think we're here tonight for the boards together to hear kind of the final report from MAPC, and we did get a few public comments. I think we got about 5 public comments from folks, so we can certainly see if there's anything that we want, any changes we want to make from the final draft. And I think we're hopeful tonight that you all will vote to approve this either in the current form or conditional upon some changes that we'll make with Taylor and I working with Carlos, so that we can get this submitted to the EOHLC so they can approve it. And we'll have we'll be in good standing with the state. So I don't know, Taylor, if you have anything you want to add to that.
Is there a deadline by which it has to go into the EOHLC?
Well, we've already passed our 5-year. I think our plan expired in February, I think, so.
So any day now.
Yeah.
We just renewed our contract, so by the end of January, ideally. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yes, if you could.
right.
We have a
Thank
few
you, everyone.
presentations tonight, so if you can hit the highlights for us, that'd be great.
Great, thank you. Very good evening, everyone. Chairpersons Leighton and Pryor, members of the Planning and Select Boards. My name is Carlos Montañez, and thank you again for another opportunity to present on the town's housing plan. Tonight, we're going to go over some of the changes that we incorporated into Draft 3, as well as provide you with a very high-level summary of the executive summary of the plan report. So this is our agenda for tonight. On the slide, we'll focus mainly on an executive summary and then focus on the changes that we made in response to a lot of extensive detailed input through the process, as well as through the different drafts of the document. So MAPC was requested by the town to gather input throughout the process in order to update your plan. And as a part of our finite scope of work, we held 4 advisory group meetings, 2 focus groups, 2 public forums with about a dozen or so participants each. We also tried our best to incorporate input into the drafts from the advisory group and public comments throughout the process. And for tonight, we're going to have our final presentation before we transmit the plan to the state for final review. So an HPP, or Housing Production Plan, is a state-required plan. It allows communities to be proactive about where to accommodate the needs of its own residents. HPPs are not limited to vacant land, and they do require a level of flexibility with something called gentle infill redevelopment on whatever limited underutilized land the town may consider to accommodate housing. And housing production plans also require a level of constant first-hand implementation efforts after they're approved. So each community is required to meet a minimum of 10% of its total housing units to be income and deed restricted affordable. Official state reports indicate Winchester has 248 subsidized units and is at 3% of that minimum 10%. In order to gain local control over multifamily proposals, the town would need to produce 40 to 81 annual units. According to more recent town information, 147 missing units could bring the town's SHI up to 4.9%. And that's the status of those might have something to do with whether or not they're under appeal or contested, or so, usually. So meeting the minimum 10% may not meet the needs of all cost-burdened residents. Cost-burdened residents are those who pay more than 30% a month on housing, potentially putting them at risk to meet other needs. And just as an example, a single-person household qualifies for an affordable unit at up to almost $83,000 in annual income. So now we'll go over the highlights from the executive summary and the plan report. So the reformatted draft 3 includes a standard executive summary that also includes within it a requested table. That table summarizes both strategies together with the prioritized implementation items. There's also a separate synopsis document that was requested, and that's for the town to be able to display it separately on the webpage for greater community access. Very briefly, the plan highlights that at 3% of the minimum required 10%, there's an affordability shortage that affects over 1,900 households that are low income at under 80% area median income, also known as AMI. And also that affordability shortage affects over 2,000 households that are cost burdened and are paying more than 30% a month than is ideal. If Winchester wants local control over how and where to accommodate Chapter 40B restricted multifamily, income restricted multifamily, it would need to approve at least 40 non-contested units per year. A 4-person household, just as another example, qualifies as low income at approximately $118,000 of annual income. Now, just a few data insights from the report. Despite any outlier data points that may exist, at the time of report drafting, the median home prices were very high, making it especially tough for seniors. Also, while households earn a lot on average in town, non-family households have much lower incomes. The limited availability of land adds obviously to your housing challenge. Another insight is that despite the fact that new housing has been planned and permitted, it's still not enough to meet the full need in the community. Many wealthier families have been moving into the town over the years and over the decades, and that has helped with steady population growth. A growing senior population does increase the need for affordable options moving forward. And the last major insight is the high cost of living makes it difficult to maintain a mix of incomes within your community. Community input reflected in draft 3 touches on things such as undoing overly restrictive zoning with things such as reduced lots, zoning and review flexibility, simplification of reviews, and also continuation of expanded options. Countering misinformation with summaries on town web pages for accessibility, and creative, flexible ideas like cottage-style housing, and possibly proactive partnerships with intentional town-sponsored or affiliated requests for proposals, RFPs. The previous plan emphasized 2 priority actions, and they were for clarifying reviews and regulations and allowing more options and expanding where they're allowed. The town has made progress the last few years and continues with its efforts despite capacity challenges, and that includes things such as having approved 2 larger scale projects, having established a housing trust, increasing planning staff capacity, and successfully passing the Community Preservation Act recently, as well as recent zoning changes for more options. The updated plan strives for increasing units overall of all types to gain local control with officially affordable income restricted units as well as smaller, naturally affordable market rate units. And in the updated plan, some of the key focus items include more types of options in targeted areas that were deemed appropriate by consensus throughout the process over the course, and increasing awareness and information to the community and on the town webpage, and increasing town capacity to pursue recommendations, including how to go about streamlining reviews. So the process involved a lot of iterative discussions that recognize that not all strategies can be priorities. Group consensus landed on top strategies, including using limited public land for affordable housing, and definitely never suggested using open space for housing. Proactive partnerships with developers, carrying forward a previous recommendation for an implementation committee to help with all of the work, and continued zoning changes. Oops, I think I skipped there. Let's see. So a lot of discussion and reconsideration went into agreeing on what the top recommendations should be and how to organize approximately 23 total strategies to not be overwhelming and also clearly reflect priorities. 10 were deemed to be key strategies for their feasibility and potential impact. And these covered things such as permitting simplification and pursuing and allowing more small market rate options in town. There were also near-term items and strategies like leveraging the recently passed CPA Community Preservation Act to create and grow funding for it, as well as continue pursuing grants for housing production assistance. The updated implementation table in the plan features clear categories for those priorities and emphasizes collaboration between leads and supporting partners for the recommended action items. It provides insights for seeking and increasing resources, and also encourages increasing communication lines as well as periodic reporting of progress by the town after the plan is approved. The requested composite table was placed up front in the executive summary. It tries to clearly display key information on what, when, and who for each prioritized strategy. The green color coding covers the primary strategies, approximately 17, and that includes the 10 priority ones. The light orange-ish color covers the secondary strategies, should there be a lot of future increased capacity to address them. Now we'll cover the extent of the input that was provided and the revisions that went into draft 3. So based on input, the town's previous report format was reorganized into 3 different documents in order to be more accessible. There's a synopsis document that is to be posted separately on the town webpage. Then there's the main report with the required state HPP chapters formed as an Appendix 1, apart from the main body of the report. And then there was a request for a second appendix that has the more detailed public input summaries, as well as a lot of regional context information that's available. The main report was shortened, and it was also reordered as well. It features a fuller conventional executive summary that should allow readers enough information to not have to consult the other deliverables. The table of contents and also large font section dividers throughout the report were intended to make at-a-glance browsing of the report a little bit easier for readers. And detailed comments and feedback on draft 2 included that reformatting request that led to those 2 separate appendices. And comments and feedback that were provided were accommodated in this revision to the extent that was possible with the purpose and the contract. And each appendix features a table of contents of its own for anyone seeking more detailed technical and comprehensive information. And as I stated earlier, the primary appendix that follows the main report has the required state-regulated HPP analyses. Keeping in mind that the primary purpose of updating the previous plan is for state approval as well as for town implementation guidance, incorporated feedback into this draft 3 includes some corrections that were pointed out, emphasizing certain priorities more strongly, a newly created definitions section, and also that aforementioned document reorganization. The recent public comment period on draft 3 included 5 submitted emails. They differ on approach details, but they agree on emphasizing needs as well as being careful about the streamlining of processes. And there were varied opinions on market rate versus technical SHI emphasis in the report, including new construction. There are a lot of comments regarding definitely discouraging demolitions in order to protect character. There were comments about having more explicit language protecting open space and making updates to reflect the recent changes that occurred on CPA, Community Preservation Act, recent town zoning changes, as well as the new state ADU bylaw that goes into effect in February. And that concludes our overview, and I thank you for this opportunity and your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a nice race through the report. Thanks. So the select board, everybody, obviously the public has had a link to this, but we asked the select board last week in advance of this meeting to make sure that we all read it, and if we had questions or comments to come prepared. So thanks for the summary. Hopefully everyone's done their homework. I trust that they have. I'll open up maybe to the select board first, and then Carrie, I'll ask you or Taylor to go next, but maybe some initial reactions. Then if let's do quick reactions to the select board, and then let's hear from the planning board. And then if we have specific asks, let's see if we flesh those out. But
so, Carl, thank you for the report. It's excellent. I look at this, and I just really wonder about the feasibility of adding 40 affordable units every year. I mean, I think we're all for it, but I was also wondering, so this is a housing production plan, but there's also a housing affordable issue. Do other communities, whether it's Section 8 or other housing vouchers, you mentioned elderly people, part of our population, feeling stress of housing costs, do other communities, if you can't, because, you know, we're analogous like a Belmont as far as a developable area. We're not Lexington where, you know, by the Bedford line, they've got, you know, hundreds of acres and they're building 400 units. We're not going to really have that. So do other communities use vouchers as a way to make housing more affordable? Not producing housing, but to make it more affordable?
Not to my understanding, especially if they're the mobile vouchers. So vouchers are not like a solution that I understand is.
Thank you.
But I can look into it to.
No, I was just more curious on your experience. But how about the feasibility of adding 40 units a year, just based on your observation of other communities and their ability to achieve safe harbor? Because maybe safe harbor is something that would be nice to achieve, but can we really do that in our lifetime?
Some communities have, others, you know, there's.
But that are 93% or 95% developed. Those are the ones I'm focusing on, not the ones with vast tracts of land next to 495 and 93 where Avalon Bay and others come in and they build, you know, 500 units. This is an adversarial question. We talk about getting out of safe harbor. I'm like, okay, we can keep talking about it. We'll talk about it for 20 more years. But really, what do you think the feasibility of that is?
It's challenging. Our entire housing department, we hear very similar comments. Some communities, coastal communities, are pretty similarly compact and what they would call fully built out. So that's why we try to emphasize a lot the creativity and flexibility with the limited land that you have. Sometimes communities get creative with talking with different municipal or public departments in order to do swaps of property and land in order to rearrange so there are existing constraints in terms of facilities and land that's owned by different departments and different entities, and they have a conversation and they determine can we switch the properties in order to achieve a goal, and then what do you do with that public land? Do you solely develop it for housing, or do you also make it a mixed-use opportunity and incorporate some other community facility with the affordable housing in order to make the most of that very limited land? And of course, that usually involves going somewhat vertical.
Right. Thank you.
Yep, yep.
Anthea?
So I think I had read through the housing production plan and the comments that were submitted, and I think some of them really sort of reflected things that I were thinking as I was reading it. So I appreciate the, taking a look at the stuff that has happened since the draft and making sure that we're updating the CPA and statewide ADU laws. And sort of in the summary of comments, there's, and I think with this like tension that we deal with, as John is talking about, we have a lot of land. We can't like build on top of our reservoir, right? So thinking of how we can sort of think towards conservation as well as housing. This is sort of like creativity and a big challenge that I think we face. And I know that the work that the planning board's been doing on North Main Street and thinking of development and thinking of kind of how that would turn over, to John's point. And the comment that I was making to Carrie when they were presenting that is like that we're not going to pass those changes to zoning and see a transformation. It's like 12 months from now we have a new Main Street. So just thinking of like how do we lay that out? How do we really think about what does it mean to add 40 units versus what does it mean to add? We're adding 9 on Cross Street, 8
Yes.
or 9 on
9.
Cross Street, right? What does that look like in small scale versus bigger scale? I think is helpful. I'm a visual. So my kids are really into Legos. So show me on the map. And then the other comment, that was in there, and I think would be helpful to address it is in addressing I know a lot of these areas and the way that Main Street extends towards Woburn are sort of in the northern half of the town, and so how do we consider also sort of other areas that are not necessarily in a space that's North Main or this light industrial zone, but also looking at areas that are single family that could have some provisions that allow for increasing housing, not in what's maybe the most obvious place, but ways that could be extended.
Okay. Bill?
I think my threshold question here is how this document's going to be used. And so I'm going to ask you a very specific question. If there is a spectrum between this being a binding plan that can be held against us for all the policies that are put forward inside of it, or something that is more an aspirational goal, where does this fall?
It's not binding, and you basically, we did our best to our ability to update your prior plan and figure out what are the top priorities. We made it as clear as possible with that composite table in the upfront executive summary. If it's basically, do you want to gain control over how and where? Otherwise, you might experience, you keep yourself open to the 40B where you don't choose the location or you have very limited control over it. So that's the.
Well, then you just spared yourself maybe 3 hours of critique. Because as an aspirational goal, I think it's a good, direction for us to be headed.
Yeah.
And there are a number of things that I could comment on or tweak, and I think we had some amazing public comments along those same lines. But knowing that this is not going to be held against us for anything that it may or may not say, I think it's putting us on the right course. Which leaves my only other question is, there seem to be a number of things that need to be updated or it, to me at least, might be a little bit out of date. Like it does mention still passing the CPA, but we've done that. I don't know if it took into account what's happened on North Main Street, thanks to the great work of the planning board, but, you know, recognizing that as well. And I noticed that the specific areas that were identified for hopefully building more affordable housing, one is River Street, where there's already, you know, a big affordable housing opportunity there that's been built. And I was just curious if all of that needs to be taken into account and updated before this gets finalized, because particularly with where we want to target, if River Street's already done, if Washington Swanton's already done, what's our next target? Where else can we find some good affordable housing opportunities in this town? Because I don't want to waste our attention on something that we've already put into play.
So the focus areas were, they were the result of several advisory group working sessions, and they were a composite of your prior plan locations and your master plan opportunity areas, and then also some insights from the parallel 3A process. So that was the composite thing. I think they're not binding. The state just requires that communities, when you update your plan, in addition to having policies and goals, that you definitely just take a look at your area, at your town, and determine where should you focus, where can you focus. None of it's binding, so.
So then, given that,
Yeah.
if you've listed 5, and if I'm saying 2 of those are already on track for some affordable housing, what was number 6, what was number 7, what was number 8? So we can start looking for more opportunities and not waste our time on ones that we were already acting on.
I mean, like.
If you don't know the answer, just say, I don't know.
Well, they didn't come from me. They came from like several iterations of like merging them together and having discussions on them. And there hasn't been like a lot of recent attention on the focus areas. So I thought they had settled, but we can do, you know, tonight's our final opportunity to figure out that as well.
I think there's still room on River Street, across the road.
If there could be, and if that's just, I think, something smart to identify. And I want to make sure if we're doing this once every 5 years, I want to make sure that we have everything up to date so that we have a lot of opportunities moving forward and we're not acting on old data.
Mike?
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks, Carlos, and thank you to the advisory group that worked on this. This final product, although there may be some small changes, really a reflection of the work of the group and the outreach to the public. I think it is very good. And, you know, when we first, the first housing production plan we did, maybe in 2018, I forget exactly when, but you know, we didn't have all the answers then either, and a lot of things that we didn't anticipate, the Cambridge Street 40B, the River Street 40B, they got us into safe harbor. So we thought that 40 to 80 units was not possible at that point either, and then it happened, and we were in safe harbor, and at least we were achieving those short-term goals by producing housing, and so. I'm confident that this is a great blueprint for us. It's certainly symbolic of our shared values of the community and from what we've heard. So I'm very, very encouraged by it. It's been a lot of work over a lot of period of time. We started off with somewhat of a template, right? And I think this looks very little like the template that we started, and I think that that's good. I think it's a reflection of the hard work and the open-mindedness that's been put into it. So I think there's maybe a few changes that need to be made here, but I'm very happy that we're moving forward with this, and I think it's a good final product to submit to the state and to keep us moving on our commitment to affordable housing, which the community keeps reminding us again and again is important. So thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Michelle.
Yep. I'm going to save my question for the end. I'm going to turn it over to Taylor and Carrie, whoever, if you want to, your group, your impressions, the floor is yours.
I don't have a ton to add this evening. I want to thank Carlos for the hard work on this and everyone who contributed to the report. This is an important step forward for keeping pressure on our pursuit of not just safe harbor, but a town that includes enough affordable units to invite new members to town and to keep those we have. I think it's great as a blueprint document. I'm very proud that some of the top bullet points were achieved during fall town meeting. I think we took some very confident steps forward. in creating the opportunity for some of this housing to be built. I can say that the comments section reflected a lot of what the planning board is feeling. The appetite for packing more density into the north end of town is pretty thoroughly stated. We're not looking to increase the density of the north end of town much more. We're also welcoming a short break from efforts to rezone sections of town. But I know that it will probably be in the future, and we hope definitely to spend the time in the interim leveraging the opportunities that the Community Preservation Act is bringing up for us in terms of building a pathway for folks who are interested in either deed restricting ADUs or deed restricting their properties if they have an appropriate property or an appropriate rental unit. If we can create, whether it's tax incentives or property maintenance incentives, I love those comments that there are ways to include some properties that are already close. And then once that pathway is built, that might be a way for us to think about which areas of town would be appropriate for future rezoning efforts, or which parcels of public land would be thoughtful redevelopment opportunities that we're under leveraging. Obviously, we're never interested in touching our conservation lands. We all moved to Winchester because we're close to Boston, but it doesn't feel like it. We want to preserve that. We want to welcome community members to this community as it feels, but we recognize the deficits. And if any other planning board members would like to speak there.
Yeah, I want to thank Carlos as well for all the work that he's done, as well as Taylor, and I'm sure Ian helped as well. One of the important questions that I think has been brought up tonight is how practical or feasible is this plan? So practically, in order to stay in safe harbor, we need 140 units every 3 years. Okay, 120 every 3 years, so that's another Cambridge Street or River Street in production, ongoing. So that's essentially saying we would need that sort of a thing coming online every year so that in 3 years it'll be done. I'm off by a little. That's one approach, and we're going to run out of land to do that because we don't have that much land. We have industrial, we have a light industrial. I personally think it's much more valuable to retain that as light industrial. I think that it brings a lot of diversity in economics and other aspects to this town, so I'm not in favor of that. The other option, which I think has come up recently, which is really astounding to me, is we've seen a 4-unit 40B proposed, where there are 3 units which are market and 1 unit which is affordable. I didn't think that that was financially feasible to have a 4-unit 40B. We can go with large 120 unit buildings every 3 years, or we can think about converting 10 lots a year to a 4-unit building and have that spread across town, where we would retain the lower density that we want, and we could, relieve some. There's only a few areas in town which have the land to put in these large, massive units. So that's kind of, in my view, those are really the only 2 ways we're going to be able to meet this. And I would very much prefer that we approach getting lower density developments across town where it's easier on the infrastructure, it's easier on our schools, and it's less visually impactful. So that will require us to rethink zoning. As Carlos pointed out, our zoning is reflective of decisions made in the 1930s. From a very different point of view as who should be in a community and who shouldn't. We have all changed. We have very different economics and population demographics now than we did back then. We need to change what we do on the ground in order to deal with what we need right now and in the future. So I think this is a great step. It is aspirational, but unless we really do some hard work in the next few years, in another 5 years, we're going to be coming back and we're going to see the same problems in front of us. So this is a great first step. Thank you.
I just want to thank you as well, and piggyback that if we want to be doing changes in zoning in town, first step is going to be getting buy-in from the town, which is something that we had to do on every step along the way of everything that's been done. It's several years getting the buy-in for that. So I think that seeing this as sort of like a guiding document is great, but the first thing is to see, to sort of see what the town wants and guide them and one of the things that I noticed that in the engagement strategies is correcting persistent misconceptions. I think it's more than that. I think we need to we could have the same exact facts, and we need to convince people that one path forward is better than another. I think that will work better for us as a town than saying that someone's suffering from a misconception of how to move forward. I think it's better to say that this is something that we need as a town and get people to buy in. So I really think this is a great step. I really liked what Mr. McGonigal said. If it was a aspirational, then we don't need to pick through every single word and say this is going to work and this isn't going to work. And if this was a blueprint that we had to follow word for word, that would be a very different document. So, no, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
I would just say and echo what has been said, and that this is a very good step forward. And also, thank you, Carlos, for your hard work.
Thank you. All right, so I think I'll just wrap it up with thank you. And I think to the extent I reached out to Carrie and Taylor and Brian this afternoon, we don't need to go back and mark it up, but I think, Diab, where you're going is, in some of the public comment too, is smaller scale. So if there's tax incentives, that's the select board, right? If we're going to waive taxes and fees, and if there's incentives for, or if we're in the purchasing units business, because there are condos for sale that aren't $700,000, as public comment pointed out, but as any review of real estate listings would tell us. How does the CPA, with guaranteed at least 10% going to affordable housing every year, how are we in potentially the acquisition business, right? The inheritance business, the splitting a couple of units, one into two, and affordable, deed restricting both. So the other reality is, to John's point around safe harbor, if these were just the rules as of last year, like maybe, but with the state putting in ADU by right in 3A, the goalposts keep moving further and further away. So I wish it was 40 units a year, but every ADU we add, we're growing the denominator with every ADU. We're growing the denominator with 3A in North Main. Let's be honest. Like, we're going to be a 40,000, person town, and maybe we'll be at 10%. But the state has not made it easy for us to actually get there and make progress when every house in town can throw an ADU, doesn't have to be affordable. That's another net one. Let's hope, if 3A blows up, maybe it will, maybe it won't. So let's see what we can do, in terms of density. Let's see what we can do in terms of character. Let's see what we can do creatively. But I'm not sure 10%'s achievable unless there's some, if the state says, hey, you have 3A, you can do 9%. Like, it'd be nice to see those goalposts move in. We're just chasing this moving target that, I don't think the dog's going to catch the car, but doesn't mean we won't try. So thank you for that, and thanks for listening to my rant. But I think we, as a select board, can do some creative things. The WCCP, the CPA group that will soon be formed, can do some creative things that are something in addition to 100 units, right? Something else, something smaller, something that gets, units for our elders, units for our young family, units for our young professionals. It's all needed. It would all be good. So.
There is a little brightness on the 3A in that we do have inclusionary housing built in. So if it's a large enough development, we'll get our 10%, so our denominator will not be growing.
Right. Okay. So do we have, are we hoping to make a motion here tonight, Beth?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know if the planning board is going to make a motion as well?
Be to make a motion that we vote to provisionally adopt, move that we vote to provisionally adopt the housing production plan conditional on amendments to be completed by the MAPC.
We didn't suggest it like that. Is there a second on the planning board's motion? Great. Should we vote and make a motion?
You can, and then we're actually going to see if anyone from the public wants to come up before we take our motion. But you want us to go first?
Does anyone want to, should we open public comment on the planning board's motion?
Yeah, we should.
Okay, is there
Sure.
discussion on the
Just bring your own chair with you when you come on up. Anybody here want to make public comment on this housing reduction plan? If so, raise your hand or approach the table. Okay, come on up, Susan. See who wants to get away quickly. Carrie, you can leave.
Susan Verticchio, live in Precinct 1, 28 Kenwin Road. I feel like a star here. And I'll be very brief. Having listened to this and attended some of the public comment sections or public forums, I just urge you to go ahead and approve this tonight. We just need to get moving. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Anybody else? All right.
So we should vote, and then you're doing
Yes.
the motion. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Right back. All right. Thanks.
Just asking to second it.
So you need Diab seconded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I move that we vote to provisionally adopt a housing production plan conditioned on amendments to be completed by the MAPC.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you
your
very much.
patience.
Carlos, thank you.
I want some chocolate for the road. Come on up.
Yeah. Can I just quickly move to adjourn the planning board meeting?
You just did, I think.
I can't move.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Right there.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone. Yeah. Somebody should.
Are those being offered to planning board members
Yes.
as well?
Come on around.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're welcome. Thank you for your hard work.
Give them the MBTA ones.
No.
Obviously, we're on that rush.
All right. So I think we're going to take our agenda up in order, except we're going to do all the license renewals at the end, I think, of our business agenda. So we can do donations, town manager's report, and then we'll move into public comment and then appointments. So we can start there. That'd be great.
Yes, wait 1 second. Donations. Thank you. All right, I move that we accept with gratitude a donation of $5,000 from Winchester Hospital / Beth Israel Leahy Health to the Health Department towards the annual subscription of their Interface Mental Health Referral Service.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Aye.
Move that we accept with gratitude a donation of $420 for appreciation of transportation services and contributions / donations to the Council on Aging.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Beth, if you can do your town manager report?
Sure, thank you. Just a few updates on items. So as we talked about at the last meeting, we are working on putting together the Winchester Committee for Community Preservation. Michelle and I had a meeting last week with the 2 weeks ago, I guess it was at this point, with our town clerk, Mary Ellen Marshall, who is going to be helping us reach out to the various boards and committees who have to appoint members. As we mentioned at the last meeting, the select board has 3 appointees. One is a member of the Field Management Committee. One is a member of either the Housing Partnership Board or the Affordable Housing Trust, and then one is a resident of Winchester who does not hold elected or appointed office. So Mary Ellen is going to be advertising both the to the public, both the resident that's appointed by the Select Board as well as the resident that is appointed by the Finance Committee, and the goal is to hold those interviews at the Select Board meeting on January 27th. And we've asked all the other boards and committees to provide their designee to us by January 22nd. Next up, I just had a very quick update from the health department that they are now offering RSV vaccines by appointment at the health department. So if folks are interested in those, you can choose to come here instead of going to your regular health practitioner. Also, a very good update. Winchester was recently honored for achieving a more than 20% reduction in our energy use in our municipal operations since our designation as a green community. So I think that's a really fantastic milestone for the town to have reached. Obviously, there's a lot of people who've gone into reaching that from our energy management committee, as well as our consultant Spark, working with Susan McPhee, who the town has worked with for many years, in addition to our DPW and our sustainability director. So give ourselves all a little pat on the back for the hard work that we've done over the past, I guess, probably 10 or so
15
years.
years, yeah.
And that's really all I had. I don't have a ton of updates with construction projects beyond what we talked about the last time. We have a lot of projects funded at Fall Town Meeting. They were working hard to get under contract. The one thing I just wanted to mention at the end here is just town hall holiday hours. So town hall will be closed on Christmas and New Year's Day. We'll be closing early on the 24th at noon, and we'll be closing early at 2 p.m. on December 31st. The transfer station, which I think everybody's probably more interested in than town hall, will be open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Tuesday, December 24th, as well as the 31st, and then be closed on Christmas and New Year's Day. And then the library will be open from 9:30 to noon on the 24th and 31st as well. So all that information is on the town's website. Thank you.
And I'm sure your next update, you'll talk about Waste Disposal Day will be in your report, because those are always coming up, so.
So Beth, nomination papers for public office
Yes.
are available
Yes,
on January
thank you.
2nd? Is that what it is?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the town clerk just sent something out today, I think, saying that nomination papers are available in early January. I don't have that calendar with me, but yeah.
Thank you.
And town meeting members, I got my notice as well for town meeting if you're up. So you should be hearing from the town clerk if you're a town meeting member up for renewal. All right, thanks, Beth. Is anybody here for public comment on anything not on the agenda? Okay, so let's, and we're not having a public hearing this evening, let's skip along to the business agenda. I'm going to do committee appointments, then I think I'm going to take up 160 Forestry, because I think some of the folks in the audience might be here for that. Then we'll move through, so it'll be committee appointments, 160 Forest, then we'll do MBTA, and on down. So if, Lauren, I think you're here, if you could come on up for the Winchester Community Access and Media, WinCam, appointment. We have your application, Lauren. I know you're doing WinRec and Fields Management, but maybe talk a bit about Community Access Media and why you want to be on this committee.
Thank you. So Community Access Media, wow, where do I start? A little over a year ago, I saw an ad on Instagram for a Adobe Premiere editing course at WinCam for a few $100s. And being a person with a background in corporate learning and development, I'm always looking for new mediums or new media to get my communications across. So I showed up, I took the course, it was fantastic, and from there I started to learn about the business, which is a nonprofit, of course, and they do a ton of service for our community, both town government, sports, and many, many other aspects. So I really have a great time there, love the people, and I'd love to help contribute more.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Lauren?
Here's a question, because you can't get out without one.
Yes,
so
you can.
This has come up frequently in the Cable Access Advisory Committee in terms of what WinCam does, and everyone acknowledges that it's very important, and it provides a service to this town that this town is enriched by. But a lot of WinCam's funding comes from our contracts with cable providers such as Verizon and Comcast. And those contracts are dependent upon the number of subscribers we have in town, which is going down. And so if you're going to be on the board, I'm just kind of curious, how do you see WinCam providing services in a environment which is increasingly less and less dependent upon ground cable, such as Comcast and Verizon? And how do you see WinCam maintaining any sort of financial stability, given that the money coming through those contracts is going to be less than it ever has been before?
A whole lot of questions wrapped into one.
Yeah.
Yes, so until that is solved legislatively, it's a struggle, right? Because more and more of us are cutting the cord. We're a family who streams only. We don't have cable. But those revenues continue to go down and down and down, and the cost pressures are higher and higher, just with anything else. WinCam was in a space in the high school until quite recently, and they lost that space, and then they had to lease out a commercial space, as you know, over on Swanton Street. That lease is coming up in September 2026, so that is a significant crunch as well. So I think that one thing that I would like to see is an increase in the awareness in our community for as to what exactly WinCam does, the contribution they make to our community, and how we can all support it. We can all help support it. So it's an awareness that we need to do more education on that, and we also probably need to do more fundraising like anything else, right? Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Pickleball for WinCam. I can see it. Mark my words. It's a killer question, Bill. Okay. Anyway.
No, that was a hard question. I
did. That's true.
I'm just glad that you're volunteering for the WinCam board, and really appreciate the service you've done to the town on FinCom and Fields Committee. And so my only question would be where are you going next? But you don't have to answer that because we already asked you, Hardball.
Thank you.
And thanks, Lauren, for I know you went on Town Day and interviewed people, and the Do You Know Winchester series, which I think is great. So I think, coupling obviously your experience around, with media and corporate learning, but how well do people know Winchester with the art walk and all the things, but how well do you know how WinCam is funded, right? I think that's using that voice and using that platform both to amplify what they do and use it to inform community members, but also to understand what the pressures are in terms of, the reality of funding. I think that'd be great. So thanks for volunteering for this. If there's no other questions, we can make a motion.
I move that we appoint Lauren Herman to the Winchester Community Access and Media WinCam for a term to expire on November 30th, 2027.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Congrats.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And is Rebecca here?
Hello.
Hi, Rebecca. So we have your application. If you could maybe just say, where you live, and we have your application, and I think you've expressed your interest in the cemetery, but I think for folks in the room who didn't see it in your packet, maybe talk a little bit more about your interest, and then you'll get a question, maybe a nicer one from Bill.
I was going to say, Bill's going to ask me.
Maybe I won't call
I'm
him
not,
first.
I'm not on the cemetery
You-
commission,
you
so I got
just-
nothing.
But, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to come and speak with you tonight. My husband and I moved to Winchester in May, so it's our first home. We're both really excited to be living here. I grew up in a small town in Indiana, and he grew up just outside of Paris, so it's a little bit of a small town, but not really. And so we knew that we wanted to live in a small town. We knew that we wanted to live in a town with community and a sense of community and togetherness. That's why we chose Winchester. So we moved actually onto Chesterford East. We're right next to the cemetery. So I can step out my door, turn left, and the cemetery is right there. That's one thing that when we were looking at the house, I was a little dubious about because that is my childhood nightmare. But I have to say that living next to the cemetery has been absolutely incredible. It's peaceful, it's quiet, it's beautiful, and it's a special place on a personal note because it's impossible to speak about volunteering without personal notes. I lost my younger brother this summer, and so I had a chance to spend a lot of time in cemeteries figuring out where we were going to put him and what we were going to do. And the experience that my family and I had planning this and also executing, it was nothing but positive. And that was because of the people who we had the opportunity to work with at the cemetery, the rules that had been laid out clearly for our family, and the care that it was treated with. So when I came back, I saw that this is an appointment that was open, and it seemed just absolutely perfect on multiple levels, something that I care a lot about.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Rebecca? You're joining a great group, too. We've appointed, several folks recently to this committee, and if you've had a chance to meet the chair or some
I
other
did
members,
yeah.
It's a nice group of, nice mix of new residents and longtime residents. So.
Yeah, they're absolutely wonderful. I wasn't sure what to expect for the first meeting, but it was wonderful.
Good. Okay.
All right. I move that we appoint Rebecca Pure to the Wildwood Cemetery Advisory Committee with a term to expire on May 31st, 2027.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very
And
much.
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
Thanks for volunteering. All right. Next up, we'll take up 160 Forest Street. Beth, maybe you want to update us?
Sure.
And Marty Jones, if you'd like to join us at the table, you may be part of a relevant update for us all, so please do.
So I think the good news is first that building on the approval at fall town meeting, we were able, through Marty's dedication, we were able to work with the Arlington Housing Corporation, who has agreed to hold the deed restriction for the property on a temporary basis. They have requested that the town assist with paying their legal fees related to the any review of that deed restriction, which I think we can work through the town manager's office. So I think it was a good outcome. That was just happened on Thursday afternoon. So town council is currently working on drafting that agreement, and I expect we'll be before the board with that draft agreement sometime in January.
Okay.
So again, all the kudos go to Marty for the work that she did with the Housing Corporation, setting that up.
So Marty, they hold, I assume, the Arlington Housing Company has had deed restrictions on, significant, like a larger volume of properties. And did you learn anything in sort of that negotiation that we can leverage here in Winchester? Like how they do business, or how they, have they had a similar type of inheriting a property, and any lessons learned for us?
No, we didn't get into that level of detail. I mean, I know that the Housing Corporation there started out doing much smaller scale housing, and they've now realized that the time, effort, and energy that it takes to do a small one, to do some bigger ones, so they've begun to do larger developments in town. I am having a follow-up conversation with the executive director and also with a small developer that she's referred to Winchester as a possible person who might be interested in 3A. So I think there are going to be lots of synergies.
Nice.
Just by opening up the conversation and, being able to talk about opportunities. So I think there's a lot we can learn. They, like everybody else, were surprised when they first heard, like, why do you need this? Why? And then when they finally understood that the deed restriction has to go on now, rather than when it's transferred to a third party, which is typical. They understood that this is kind of an unusual situation because of the timing and the requirements of Mass Health to get this done. I should add the other thing that they did come back with on Thursday was wanting to have in an agreement a payment of an administrative fee that would be an hourly, I think they proposed 15-minute increments at $100 an hour if there were things they needed to do. In my conversations with them, I basically said, you're holding this during a time period when they're not lower moderate income people living there. You're not going to have to do incomes. You're not going to have to do any monitoring. It's really just holding it. So it shouldn't be anything that requires them to be involved, but I can understand as a small nonprofit. So I think there'll need to be a letter agreement or something with them that outlines the legal fees and the town's position on that.
It'll be important that they're not doing things without us asking them to do things too, right? To your point, there's no one living there. We're still going through a probate process and a land court process. But we certainly don't want to necessarily get ahead of ourselves and have them doing things that we're just not ready to either consume or endorse. So.
Well, and they understand this is really just sort of a passive favor, frankly, that they're doing for the town. I think we should give them the Good Neighbor Award of the Year for doing this, because it's not something that's typical, and great to do.
Okay. How long do we think it's going to take to sort of iron out the details?
Yeah, I think Jay, again, I think hopefully we'll be here with your first meeting
January 13th.
So hopefully we'll have a draft for the board to approve on the 13th. That would be my goal. I think, we have kind of a timeline laid out by Mass Health. Jay was going to try to get, a little bit of relief in case things take a little bit longer than we hope. We have to have the state review the deed restriction
the
as
state
well.
still has to agree the deed restriction as well, which I know Jay's had a conversation with them, and they understand that it needs to happen, but that's always kind of a, unpredictable time period if they have to review something.
Okay. And Arlington's good for however long it takes to sort of get us to there and then let it play out. Great.
Right.
And do we have we wouldn't know, but I'm trying to think of the Mass Health example. So have we talked to like the director and another person at the Housing Corporation who's committing to this?
The director took it to her executive committee.
Great.
So the executive committee had discussed this before town meeting, where they said they were willing to consider it, and then they discussed it again and took whatever formal vote they had to do, saying that they did. So the executive committee of the board has been involved in this.
Just don't want to have a single point of failure of we agreed to do this and then someone's surprised. So, okay. Great. Any other highlights, Beth, on 164? This is the big one, and Marty, thank you. And I know we were like this close at town meeting, so great to have it kind of like truly underway and in the works. So thank you for that. Anything else on this as it plays through the courts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the logistical piece. I think it's the long-term conversation that the Housing Trust discussed last week. I think there was a memo in your packet
Yes,
from Marty.
right here.
So I don't want to speak for Marty as chair.
Yeah, I mean, we did have a conversation at the trust about, so since town meeting did not take action to transfer to the trust, what's our role in helping the town evaluate and implement something on the site? And we would very much like to be involved in that. I think just for clarity of responsibility, our preference and ask would be, if the select board wants us to do it, then ask us to do it, or give us the responsibility to do some evaluation, talk to the neighbors, create a process to try to develop a plan, both physical and financial, because any development there, I think as everybody knows, is going to need some funding from somewhere to plug the gap between the cost of renovating or building something and what an affordable mortgage could cover. So we're willing to take that on, but we'd like to have kind of responsibilities clear so there aren't any confusions about that later.
So one thing that might be helpful, I know, Mike and Beth, as you're meeting, as part of the trust, what are some tangible next steps? There's the 12 things you could do. There's the first 3 or 4 most important things to do. If that's what the trust is sort of raising their hand to do, that would be helpful, I think, for us to see. We're not in a position necessarily to say, go off and start writing an RFP, right? Or doing site walks. We don't own the property yet. We don't want to necessarily introduce anything into that property. We want it to be left in the condition that it's in, right, until we know it's truly ours to do things with. Right now, it's the property of the estate. So I don't think we want to be trespassing on something that we don't yet own. But understanding from your perspective, and with Mike and Beth as our representatives to that board, what are the first 3 things, within 60 days of us getting title? Like, what would be important things to do, and what some of the longer term things that we could do in parallel? And then it's a reasonable ask, if we're tasking you to do it, make it clear that you're tasked to do it. But what are the other things that have to happen, and who else could be doing that in parallel? I think that would be helpful. A little roadmap of next steps, not high level, not like the housing production plan, not 100 pages, but truly, where do you see that as kind of like your sweet spot and your interest, and you have the time and the energy to do it? What are other things that need to happen that between town manager's office and town planner and town engineer, what are the other things that need to happen to fall into place? That would be great. Maybe for January, maybe after all these details are worked out on the deed restriction.
Well, I mean, I think it would be good for us to think about that sooner rather than later, and we had a little bit of a conversation about that at our meeting, and there were a couple of residents from the area who joined us, which was great to hear, their input, and I think that's something that obviously would be one of the first things we could do. So we could certainly map out what we would think about doing as sort of a plan of work to get it to the point where we're actually engaging somebody to do the work.
Yep.
For it.
Okay. Other updates, questions from Marty?
I would just, again, extend appreciation to Marty for working with the Arlington Housing Corporation and finding the ability to move this forward. It was really threading a needle, and it's a great relationship for us to start, as the trust is fairly new. We're going to have revenue coming in from the CPA as well, and so we'll learn from them. Developing that relationship in the future, I think, is going to be really beneficial. Certainly, I think there are residents that want to have a hand in what we do with this project. We seem to get a lot of interest on the really small projects and less on the big ones, but that's fine. That's how things are. But I hope we can move forward quickly with this. And normally we would be at the stage where we would start a working group and we'd start people meeting pulling things together. Well, the working group is the Affordable Housing Trust here, so they're the ones that have the expertise and are representative of the community. And so I'm hoping that we don't wait too long to kind of hand over this task. I don't think that this board has the ability to do that either, but certainly coming up with a strategic plan for getting that done, hopefully sooner than later, makes sense. If that's something that Marty, we can develop with the trust and then back to the select board, but I don't think we should be running on a parallel track with the legal work, which is, it's going to be finalized fairly soon. I think that we've kind of checked everything off that we need to here. So it's just a couple hoops to jump through. And, if we even need to get some pictures of the interior or exterior, I mean, we can certainly do that. We have a drone available as well at DPW. We can do all that stuff. So I don't know that we necessarily need to walk through, but it would be helpful for us to get some visuals of the interior and exterior. We've been maintaining the property as well. So it's, I think that's within our right to do so.
Yep. Okay. Questions?
None.
Additional thoughts from you, Marty?
No, I mean, I think we're ready to get going, and I think Michael's right. We may as well start mapping out what needs to be done, because why wait until all the legal machinations get worked
Right.
out? It sounds like it's on a track. It may just take a little time to get it done, but it sounds like it's going to happen.
Let ourselves get ready to go.
Yeah.
Great.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Look forward to more. Okay, so next up, we'll get the MBTA update.
Nathaniel, I also have, in case you need it, the map. It's up there too.
Oh, okay, all right, thank
So
you.
we'll just do this first.
Sure. Thank you.
Go.
Hey, welcome back, Nathan. Great to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you.
Was the last time you were here when the Celtics won the championship, June 17th? Is that right?
No,
Were you here in
Did-
September?
That was, I think that was the second to last
Second to
time.
last time.
they were here, yep,
September.
August 22nd.
So close to September.
Yeah.
Okay. That's right.
Came back 2
Trying to
weeks
make
after
it
that.
Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Thank you for having us. So Nathan Ray, MBTA Project Manager, Alani Fidalgo, Senior Director with MBTA. We're going to give you the usual quarterly update on Winchester Center Station, the partial station opening, construction activity, and looking ahead to what's going on in the future. I think everybody knows what we're doing there. 2 fully accessible high-level platforms and canopies, 3 new elevators, ramps, covered stairs. Maybe some of you had a chance to go check out part of the station that's been open.
Hey, Nathan, can I ask you something?
Sure.
I think it's the MBTA's responsibility, although I'm not sure. Do you think we could get that graffiti taken off?
Where's that?
It's on the Aberjona side. It's been there since a week before it opened.
Really?
Just sprayed it.
Yeah.
This big.
Yeah, it's been there for
Months?
it's been there probably like 3-4
Since
months.
the beginning of September.
It's not John's best work, but it's pretty.
It's my kids.
He's never regretted.
It's a shame. The place is beautiful, and it's just.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's down at the end of the ramp, right?
Yes.
I think I remember
really?
that.
I see.
I think I remember it now. Certainly will
Is that a yes?
get maintenance to look at that.
Yeah,
yes.
we could.
Yeah. So about that partial station opening, we opened on October 1st. So both sides, both platforms, half of the platforms were open, 2 elevators, a ramp, and 3 sets of covered stairs, lighting, signage, and wayfinding. Tracks and ties were all new. Our estimated daily ridership is about 150 on-offs, so that's not pre-COVID levels that we were seeing at Winchester Center, but it's, we're hoping that that goes up back to, we were 400 to 500 before COVID, yeah.
Do you know how that compares to Wedgemere? Was there a shift from Wedgemere ridership?
Yes. I don't know numbers, but it went down. Wedgemere went down when Winchester Center opened, yeah. Recent construction activity. So we've started the third and final elevator behind Thompson Street. The salvage stone installation is going on at Laraway Road. What's the new stairway there? And then there's a ramp on Laraway Road being constructed. Again, there's salvage stone being placed there recently. And then this is a more concrete placement at the platform level of the inbound track. We've had some schedule impacts. So we partially opened the station October 1st, like I said. What that produced, while we were successful, it produced some delay in the project by labor being focused on the partial station opening activities. There are parts of the final station full opening that have lagged behind. So many of the critical path activities that due to those activities being delayed into the winter, some of those critical path activities are now can only be performed in the warmer months are now falling into colder months, and so that's pushing off various temperature sensitive activities such as concrete finishing, painting, and sealants. We've lost some track time also to surrounding projects. West Medford, there's a project down there.
What's the project in West Medford?
They're building 2 new mini high platforms down there.
Is that new? I mean, I take the train from there sometimes. So when did that start?
The West Medford project?
It was probably last summer, yeah. So it's 2 mini high platforms with ramps and canopies.
Was that
one on each side?
Is that being prioritized above completing this project?
Not necessarily prioritized, but I mean, they have access needs that we're trying to incorporate into the schedule also.
Okay. But why is that impacting the ability to get this one done, which has been going on for a lot longer?
Why is it impacting it? Well, I mean, there are other projects that we have to work into the schedule.
Sure, but you just mentioned the West Medford one, and I want to bring your attention. I want to say thank you to WinCam for putting things online, because I went back and re-listened to your prior presentations. And in June, when you have 2 colleagues here with you, one of the gentlemen specifically said that the general manager has given assurances that our project would be done by the end of this year, quote, unless something catastrophic happened. So is this West Medford project something catastrophic that is preventing you from getting this project in our town done?
I wouldn't say it's catastrophic.
No, it's not.
Just, I mean.
So was that a falsity? When he told us that the general manager had assured us that our project was going to be done by the end of this year, unless, quote, something catastrophic happened? And if not, then what were the catastrophes that are causing these delays? Because this has gone on way too long.
The biggest delay is from the labor being focused on partially opening the station. That's the delay that's happened. We have the contractor had trouble pulling in new labor force for carpenters, for electricians, and that's just delayed. It's delayed it. I don't know if we call that a catastrophe, but that's what's happened.
Would you call that a catastrophe? Would your general manager call that a catastrophe?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't call it catastrophe. All I can tell you as a project manager that the labor that was focused on partially opening the station on October 1st had a result in that following subsequent activities focused on full station opening that was scheduled for the end of the year lag behind.
So Nathan, can you guys take the liquidated damages that contractor's paying and pave the Aberjona parking lot? It's pretty rough.
It's pretty rough.
Yeah, come on, we think.
It started out pretty rough too, though.
Well, I know, but we have an extra station, and we have a crappy looking parking lot. Come on,
Yeah,
there's got to be some flexibility. You keep coming to us asking for extensions and easements and all kinds of stuff, and we get nothing. We get a bill from the MBTA for the Morocco School culvert, pay a ton of money for like a piece of land as big as a table on the other side of the station. There's going to be some money there.
You got a bill from us, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we
And
did.
that doesn't even account for the amount of lost business that all of these shops and other store owners are facing with the lack of parking that's being taken for just
It's the holiday season.
terrible excuses.
You can say yes.
I can say yes. Does Adam know?
Yes.
Does that? I can't answer that question right now. That we're going to pay for the whole Aberjona parking lot. I'm sorry.
Oh, I mean, it's not that big a deal. I mean, it's not like acres.
Oh, it is. It's a pretty big deal. You're talking. The request is for the whole Aberjona.
Well, all right. How about if we just do the part from, 200 feet in from the street?
I don't think we're in a.
I'm not looking for a commitment right now, but can you take that back to the general manager and see what he says? Maybe.
No, we got the concerns. Beth forwarded them to us, and we plan on going back and we fixed there was a.
No, but those are like pretty terse answers. They were just like one-liners. I'm like, come on, Nathan, have a heart here, huh? Just throw us a bone. There was nothing in there. There was like.
I mean, we have to. I mean, if we go back and look at photos from before the station project, and if
I go back to August 2024, when you were here and you gave assurance after assurance that you'd be done by the end of the year, that means more to me than a photograph of what that parking lot looked like 3 years ago. If I go and ask the restaurant owners and the shop owners how many customers they're losing because they can't find parking, because it's all being taken up by your equipment for a year and a half longer than you promised us, that means more to me than a photo of that parking lot from 3 years ago. You guys have come in here over and over again and promised that this was going to get done, and it's never been delivered. And I don't know how much I can personally trust your word when now you're telling me it's not going to be done till June. What if it's not? And I have to go back, and all of us have to go back out and tell these town members who elect us that once again, like the farmers market is going to be in the shadow of a bunch of crane lifts and tractors and the other equipment you put there. That their traffic is going to be clogged through downtown because they can't go down Laraway Road. It's a little obscene that this is going on and on and on with no good explanation.
Well, I could say things, but I think you've heard them all before. I know Beth and I have spoken over the years. It's a difficult station to build. That hasn't changed. It's always been the same. Viaduct. It's always been we can only build it from one side. We can't build it from anywhere else. We need Laraway Road in order to build the station. We can't build it from the tracks. It's way 20 feet up and 25 feet up in the air, and we need to keep traffic moving. The site restrictions of this site are difficult, and I know everybody knows that. It keeps coming back to things taking longer while keeping rail moving, while keeping other projects going, while doing maintenance work. And I know that the town, we've overstayed our welcome. I understand that. It's clear. But we are coming towards the end. We believe that, with the final platform pieces and ramp pieces going in January, the electricians will come along, the elevator's going to finish up, guardrails, and then Laraway Road. We'd like to give back weekend parking there in May. That's our plan. We'd like to do, and then by June and July it would be opened up, and we'd still be finishing up a few things there. That's how we anticipate things going.
So, I mean, I'm gonna turn over the mic here in a second. I think you want to say something too. It's just it's hard. Bill's right. I mean, in June you were here and it was the end of the year. In August we were told nothing else will get ahead and get in the way of this project. And in August it was, or, no, I guess it was, can we take more parking for buses in November and December because of track closures? But in August, it was nothing else, your colleague, nothing else will get ahead of this. And now it's like, oh, West Medford, and fair enough, you're doing some work along the track on weekends, but, and it's a year and a half delayed. We've never got a nickel of compensation. When utilities tear up streets for years, right, and use our parks for laydown space and do fiber optic cables running up and down Main Street, there are payments, they restore the site, and then they restore it again, and they restore it again. If they tear it up again, they pave it again. And there's payments for improvements to public spaces, to the spaces that they've used, and for the lost recreation and the lost revenue. You've never offered us a nickel. That's parking meter revenue, it's parking permit revenue, it's daily parking revenue, and it's disruptions to our business, disruptions to our traffic. And now it's June. It was December, it was November, and for goodness sakes, it was supposed to be June of 2024 at the beginning of this project. So I get that you acknowledge you've overstayed your welcome, I get that, but I'm not sure what faith or trust we have in this deadline, given what we heard in August, which was absolutely nothing else gets in the way. And now it's, well, this came up and that came up. So, and we're, oh, maybe we can't repave 200 feet of a parking lot? Like, come on, really? I don't know. I mean, and you want more time. You want 6 more months of an easement on a road that farmers market, whatever it is, it's incredibly disruptive. I'm not sure what the appetite of the board is going to be to give an extension. I mean, it expires December 31st or January 1st, Beth?
December 31st.
Okay. I understand you can't complete the project without it, but I don't know. Mike, I saw you sort of writing some things, so I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, just taking some notes. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Nathan, you guys for coming in. I think what's been completed so far, the project looks phenomenal. It looks great. I think the workmanship, everything, it looks really good. I'm really excited about finishing this, and I know that we thought it was going to be done sooner than later. It's a complicated project, and we've been talking about it for years, and so I get that in some of those labor issues and workforce issues. I mean, that happens in every project. I would, and one of the things to note as well, I've been part of this for a long time, right? We've been working on this for a long time. So we actually deferred, maintenance and construction for at least 7 years that I can remember on the Aberjona lot, because we were always at the goal line with projects being approved, it's not being approved, and we knew that once you guys got in there and did what you needed to do, right? I mean, I don't think anything was reckless or anything was damaged intentionally or anything like that, but I think it was a major construction site, especially during some tough weather. There was, water that got everywhere and tore up some of the asphalt, and it is a mess. And if our goal is to deliver the best project possible from the MBTA's perspective and the town's perspective and increase ridership, that's what you want. I think what John's asking for is not a lot. I mean, I would say let's work together on getting that lot paved, lined, looking nice, inviting for the community. That is the entrance, for a lot of people to Winchester, and we want the project to be finished. I would say, hey, I'd be willing to not have you back here in January. Let's, if you guys want to do pave the lot, I'd make it conditional on if you do that, we'll give you till May already, and we won't have to be doing this back and forth all the time, because it's not really productive, to be honest with you. I know it's not productive for you, it's not productive for us, because there are a lot of things that are out of our control. But if you had a window of time there, and we could say to residents, yeah, we told you this was going to be done last year, but it'll be done in this period of time, and the lot will be done, and it'll look new. I think that would be really helpful to us. And, I have no idea the cost of things. They're always twice as much as I think, so I'm not going to even put it out there. But I think it's fair to ask that. So if you can bring that back to the general manager, and I think that request is really a reasonable one. So thank you for staying with it and answering our questions and everything. Appreciate it.
Question for Beth. Is this impacting our ability to get the Waterfield project going?
At this point, they're completely completed. They're out of the water
Okay,
field
so
audit.
it's
Yeah,
not-
I mean, there's a puddle and some pavement markings that need to be addressed, but
Yes, yeah. So we did work out with Beth, and I understand that this is an additional request with the Aberjona parking, but, we did work out with Beth that we would repave all of Lair, I think everybody knows, all of Lair Way, restripe it, and we did the part in the Waterfield as well, and some in the Aberjona. So, I mean, yes, to Michelle's point, we did work out stuff that we knew we were going to damage, and it was going to be, afterwards, we'd have to come back and do that. So there is a scope that we determined that we would do, and we fully intend on doing that. But this additional scope, I didn't come here tonight to be in a position to give a yes, so I don't.
So I just want to point out that the 90% plans that the town worked with you on did show repaving of a large section of the Aberjona lot, and then
Yep.
that was subsequently dropped by the T without the town's knowledge. So I think it's fair to continue that conversation. It is in very bad condition. It was not in great condition to start with, but there are trenches and curb work and a ton of other work that's happened over the past few years out there. It's not a great place for people to be pulling in and out, and it certainly, to Mr. Betancourt's point, does not have that welcoming atmosphere that we want a beautiful $54 million train station to bring to our community. So I think it's worth, I know you can't make the commitment tonight, but I think it's worth continuing that conversation.
Right.
Who can make that commitment?
I don't know.
And can they come to our select board meeting in January? So we can, just get straight to the heart of getting this done.
Or just run it by them, see what they say. They don't have to come if they approve it, right? So
Well, that's true.
We'll approve an extension. I mean, as I said, these meetings are, they've run their course, right? So, I'm sure it feels so as well. But, it's, I think it's time that we get the project done the right way. So, see what the powers that be say. We appreciate it. Yeah.
We focus on the parking lot is important, not just to us as a town to look nice, but like people who are taking the T. It's going to be a reflection on the T if the parking next to the station doesn't look good. My role often is project manager, so I understand there are things that are out of your control, and I know you have multiple subs working on this project, right? So if one sub is off and then the other sub, things fall. But, I would be curious to know, as Bill points out, we said this would be done by the end of the year, and now, and then we get notice it's going to be in June. So, one question is, at what point did the T know that this was not going to be done at the end of December? And then at what point, and I've asked this before, and we were glad that the station was able to open on October 1st, but at what point will you know if June is or is not a feasible date? Because at some point, it was, I think, elevator approvals in September. At some point it's going to say, this is looking good, this is not looking good. I will throw at you, you got the gift of a very not snowy winter last year, right? Which I know allowed a lot of extra, work to be done that in a storm would not be available. So, what if this is our year? What if this is like 2015 again, right? But, when do you know that the work is off schedule, and when do we get that information?
Yeah, all those things factor in the weather. Last year we had a lot of rain, but, we didn't get as much snow. So, if we do get hit with some bad weather, it's definitely going to impact things. But we're working with the contractor to try to improve the June date. So, we just weren't prepared to give an update, as far as, if we can pull it back or not, the date. But I think that's something we've been monitoring pretty closely with the contractor.
So is June the...
How reliable is the
How
June
confident are you that June is accurate versus June is accurate if it's dry and a little bit warm this winter? Or is June accurate if we get 4 big snowstorms and there's still padding in the schedule for June? How confident are you that June will get done barring 2015 winter, barring, very serious winter storms.
Yeah, I mean, we have built-in weather delays, like a typical, I think it's, I don't know, was it one a month or something? I don't know, there's a certain amount of weather delay built in. And so, if we eat up all of the weather delay in January, then, that'll tell us, well, we're starting to slip. And, with schedule updates that we get, we can, see what that final end date and what we can look like. If we're lagging behind in January, maybe we can catch up in March or April. Yeah, and so I think, when did we let you know? I think Adam was talking to Beth. Adam is our comms person. We did let Beth know, I'm not sure how long ago, about this conversation about, not meeting this last milestone. So, but we can try to let you know definitely sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just point out, I received an email in September from someone who overheard mention that December was completely unrealistic, and it took a while for that to come to us as a board. And if it's possible that the town manager can receive updates on, I don't know how often you're receiving updates on schedule, but I assume that you have very regular updates on schedule. If that can be a little bit more frequent to the town, because if we're going to go out and tell people that the station is opening in June and suddenly the station's opening in September, I'd rather we know in March that that's unrealistic versus that we know May 31st that that's unrealistic.
All right. Any other updates that you guys want to share? Because I think we're done on our side.
One last quick question.
Okay.
If this work that you can only do in the warm weather, is there any equipment you can pull out during the cold weather to give us some more parking back? If you don't know, you can just say I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look at, there's certain activities that we need to keep, equipment on site in order to,
Okay.
We could try to look, I don't know this answer.
That's
At this point in
honest.
time, I can't tell you.
I would prefer an honest answer than anything else, so thank you.
Okay. So we'll probably take a motion to do some, not a full, June easement extension, but if you can get back to us on Aberjona lot, some of the other questions that Beth has. We're not going to kick you out of the Laraway space on New Year's Day, but we're also not in a position, I don't think, tonight to give you 5 or 6 more months until we hear some more answers. So, but yeah, to Anthony's point, when you know more about the overall schedule, bad news doesn't get better the longer it lingers. So let us know. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right, I move that we approve the MBTA temporary easement in the Waterfield and Aberjona lots extension to January 13th, 2025.
Do you want to do it to the 14th?
Okay, to the 14th.
Fair enough, the 14th.
All right, to January 14th.
Good catch. All right, all those in favor? Okay. That's that. We don't have an update on Washington Swanton Street, so next up we'll do outdoor dining. So this is on the agenda for this evening to mainly, we're not going to take a formal vote on outdoor dining this evening. We have a letter from Mr. Bennis, who's in the audience. Last year we had shortened the season, then we lengthened the season in April. I just want to sort of tee it up for the committee, for the board, that I'm not sure that the April vacation week was particularly lucrative for outdoor dining, and I think if we look at taking some of those weeks back and starting outdoor dining closer to May 1st than April vacation week, if we want to look at the end dates of mid-October and pull that in some, I wanted just the group to have, we usually don't want to vote it the first night that we discuss it, so I wanted to just throw it out there that we made some tweaks last year. I think there's, we just heard the tea is not leaving anytime soon, and those spaces remain unavailable. So I think we should look at pulling in some of those ends of outdoor dining. But that's just for us to kind of kick around some ideas. I don't know if Mr. Frederilli, Mr. Bennis want to come up and give some public comment. You're both welcome to, or not. but we're not taking a formal vote tonight, but we do have your letter. It was in our packet. Thank you. So everybody does have that. Yes.
Board Chair, Select Board members.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Town meeting member. Happy holidays and healthy new year to you all.
Thank you.
Mr. McGonigal, thank you so much for sticking up for small business.
You're welcome, sir.
I mean, we have been without parking now, difficult times since COVID. You have my letter. I'm an open book. Throw some questions at me, whatever you want to know. I've been in business in this town for 47 years. I was 12 years old when I started.
Yes, exactly.
If you believe that one is a bridge in Brooklyn, I want to tell you. But all kidding aside, parking is the lifeblood of small business, which is the backbone of the American economy. You know that. Questions, whatever you want to know, I'm more than happy to ask. And if you want to hear my comments, you've read my letter. I think it speaks for itself. We all have to work together. There's nothing more important than the success of all businesses. And all I was asking for is a simple compromise where they can, the small business community and the restaurants can coexist and still make money and still survive, which is what small business is all about.
I think having Laraway Road and some other places back will go a long way, some additional parking. So I think the question I might have, and I can talk with Dana at the chamber as well, the center's been going on since 2021, pretty much, and we've lost, 3 blocks of parking since then. Outdoor dining is a time-limited, May to October, 3 spaces per street, pretty much. 3 on Mount Vernon, 3 on Main, 3 on Waterfield, 2 or 3 on Church. So I would just ask, maybe not, if you have the data, great, but I think I'm going to go back and ask the chamber. If you look at your business and you look at some of the impacts, which are, I don't doubt, significant since COVID, how much of that ties to, spring and seasonal dining, and how much of that ties to just the T has taken up 2 blocks of parking? It's probably all of it.
About the loss of parking. Not a day goes by that somebody doesn't come into me and say, boy, I tried to get here last week, but couldn't find a place to park. I went elsewhere. Just wanted to tell you that. Not a day goes by that I don't get 2 or 3 comments about how difficult it is for people to park.
And so that's happening like today in December, right?
No, that's been happening since we lost the Waterfield lot.
Yep. So I guess my point is, you could get those complaints in March when there's no outdoor dining happening. You could get those complaints today in December when there's no outdoor dining happening. It adds, but the parking situation is a year-round challenge.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
it is. Let's see if I have. Okay. It's tough, and so, as I said, I'm just hoping that we can have a compromise on the dates of the outdoor dining.
Yep.
I mean, we all want to work together, and it's not us against them. It's a cohesive unit for the success of small business in Winchester. We've got 10 new businesses in the past year, which means we probably lost 10 businesses. If something goes out, another one goes in. But it's very, very difficult. It's a challenge, so to speak.
Yep.
It's a challenge.
And I think I've asked the board to, we're not going to look at the calendar and pick the week today, but I do want us to think about it and come into whether that's January 13th or January 27th, and we'll let business owners and restaurant owners know the day that it's on the agenda. It could be the 13th, could be the 27th, but I think I will be asking the board to consider shortening that season, pulling in those dates on either end.
So I'm glad you asked me that. All right, because I did a little research. Because last year I heard about how much business was going to be done by the restaurants over April vacation. It wasn't you, Phil. Okay, all right. Stipulate that. So I just got some temperatures, and the high temperatures for the month were 51, 50, 56, 48. So I like to use Perplexity. Use Perplexity AI? It's pretty good. Low average temperature for April in Winchester is approximately 48 degrees, and the high is 56. So, feasibility of outdoor dining. For outdoor dining to be enjoyable, temperatures ideally should be above 60 degrees. So, case closed, right? I think that...
What was the temperature on September?
I only did it for April. I'll look in the... come on, fine.
That's his homework for January.
I'm exhausted.
I've seen it for years.
I have in my phone the pictures that I took on Mother's Day of what was going on outside dining. One person here, one person there. Some restaurants were completely empty in the afternoon. Mother's Day. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
So we might do more than just, AI, but thank you for that, Joe.
Well, no, I did some really hard original
I know,
work too,
yeah,
but I
yeah. There's a
didn't really put it all into a spreadsheet.
No, I think it's relevant.
Artie, you just specifically mentioned Mother's Day.
Yes.
And Phil, you sent us an email this afternoon as well saying you want to be up and running by Mother's Day weekend.
Yes, thank you all for having me again. I'm sorry I didn't bring 600 signatures this time. For the town of Winchester, I can get more than that to support outdoor dining. The notion that this is a compromise, I mean, we already compromised last year. There was a significant trim to the season from 23 to 24. And now to trim it all the way to Memorial Day is really unfeasible for restaurants. I mean, May is maybe one Mother's Day was cold, but that's the second busiest day of our year, second only to Christmas Eve. I mean, we have a roof deck in the city. We open it the first Saturday of May for the Derby. We have a Derby party every year. That's traditionally always a warm event that people go outside for. To be ready for Mother's Day, I think is a good compromise. I think May 1st is a Thursday. We could open for that weekend. That's a pretty good compromise. And I would look at the temperatures in October because this Halloween we're all in shorts with our kids going around trick-or-treating. And that's a really important kind of shoulder season for us in the restaurant industry. When people come back from the summer where they're on the Cape all summer, I think, I'm cognizant of the fact that people look to parking as an issue in this town. We probably require, we use the most spaces out of any business downtown. I know, people have to park far away to get to the restaurant, but that's part of being downtown. If we were in a strip mall someplace, it wouldn't have the same, character for us to be, operating in Winchester. So that's just part of it. And I think there is parking for people who know where to find it and are willing to who want to come to eat. They're going to find a place to park. The thing, particularly for the small businesses around us, that those shoulder seasons represent a time when our lunch business, particularly outside, is the best of the year. People want to sit outside. When it might be cold at night, but it's a great time for them to go shopping at the stores and have a lunch outside in the patio. So I'd like to see, maybe, like I said, May 1st I think is a good compromise. I think October 31st should be set in stone. I don't think we have to come back every year to fight about this. I think this is a good compromise going forward. And like I said, Mother's Day is, if you're not going to do it for me, do it for the mothers. They're going to do it. Walk outside. Enjoy
Second only, do it for the children, Phil. So there you go.
We don't care about the children.
For
Joking.
majority of the small business, May is the busiest season of the year for our spas, the hair salons, the nail salons. People are going to parties. There's graduation. There's prom. You read my letter. I mean, it speaks for itself. It speaks for itself. If you study it and you read it, I think you will see there's a strong compulsion for a compromise of May 1st. I mean, the Chamber of Commerce says it, and small business needs it, and again, we have no control over the weather. And it's disheartening to look out and see rain on some of those beautiful outdoor dining situations with the chairs and the flowers and the canopies, and there's nobody there, and people can't find a place to park. I mean, too bad we can't pull them in and pull them out when the weather goes, but that's not That's not feasible. And just an aside, Mr. McGonigal, I wish we could have done some sort of a financial compromise with the MBTA. You know, we'll give you the extension, but we want this, we want that, and I'm sure you can figure that out too.
Oh, we've tried.
Yeah, I think that's what we asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this parking issue is really exacerbated by the MBTA nonsense. And when they're finally out of here, you'll find that your business and all the business is back to where it belonged, where we expect it to be. And this is a marginal, immaterial impact that the restaurant uses.
But I am greatly concerned about the loss of parking on Waterfield. 90 spots we're going to lose. That parking lot supports all of the restaurants at night. I mean, you can fill that parking spot up and you could walk to just any restaurant in the center very, very easily.
Yeah.
We're going to lose that. I'm worried for the restaurants too. But that is what it is.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming in. I think where we were last year on this is, I think we acknowledge that with the outdoor dining, we've been kind of building the plane as we're flying it. I think at least for a little while, it's going to feel like this every year until we get a sense of like what works for the small businesses, the retailers, as well as the restaurants to maximize time. We don't know. We can look up the weather. We can, prognosticate on it. And I think as we try to find that balance, maybe we'll get something that works for everyone. And so now, Artie, which date would you prefer to open for the outdoor dining? What timeline did you say? I mean,
June 1st.
June 1st. Okay, so Phil's looking for
June, July, August, September.
Yep.
That's 4 months of what did one of the restaurant owners say? $4,500 a day extra.
Yeah. So
That's a lot of cash.
Yeah.
For nothing as far as the rent is concerned.
Yeah, and I know that the parking issue, we've talked about it, existed prior to outdoor dining and prior to some of the construction and all of that, and so we've got some work to do to get things in balance to support, as you said, all these new businesses that are coming in and putting their faith in us. I do think that the loss of the Waterfield parking spaces will be balanced out by the foot traffic and the people from the building that live there and want to come to use the businesses and the restaurants. But we've got a little work to do to hit it on the bullseye, and it'll look differently, I think, every year. But somewhere between May 1st and June 1st is what we're talking about, right? That would kind of please. I'm not so inclined to say that the outdoor dining has to be open for Mother's Day, because I do, recall that as, over the years as being, a fairly inclement, at least unpredictable time.
I was looking at the photos.
Yeah. So and it may be that we're wrong and it's beautiful out and we should have opened that.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think to your point, if we're going from somewhere middle of May or June until middle to late October, it's a good chunk of time. And I have also noticed that even though we've approved some businesses for outdoor dining, some of them opened outdoor dining late, even though they were approved, just because they weren't feeling it, and so that's something that maybe we can factor in as well, with the cost structure or something like that if we do it by weeks. But yeah, we're getting there. I will say that I think it's been an overwhelming success, the outdoor dining, from what I've heard from residents. They like it. It keeps them coming downtown. They sit out, they go after, their kids' soccer games and baseball games, and they don't have to feel like they've got to go inside somewhere and be cleaned up. And so I think for families, it's been especially successful, and hopefully that has driven dollars as well to some of our small businesses. I know, sometimes my kids tend to, if we're waiting for a restaurant, they'll go in and get ice cream before dinner or something like that, which is not the best parenting, but it's things that happen. So,
It's a kid.
but yeah, thank you guys for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you for all you're doing. I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you so much. And you're in the center. Please come in, say hello, and ask me questions.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thanks for coming in.
Yep.
Can I just add, this kind of sparks to a conversation we had around the handicap parking spots, but I think either if we can look at in the center, just do we have 1 spot, 2 spots, like expanding that, especially as we get the Laraway lot back, as we'll have more parking, but the actual access to parking for someone who, you know, I like to take my kids and park them far away and have them run across the common and like shake some of that out and sit outside so they don't bother anybody. But for people where, you know, accessibility and going longer distances is a challenge, being able to have more spots designated downtown, I think would be benefit.
Or tightening the really, really big spots. That's the.
I've made that comment before.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the spaces that were approved earlier this year was based on the recommendation of DAC in terms of where they thought additional spaces were needed downtown. I think, you know, maybe once Laraway opens up again, there's either one or two
I
spaces
think.
on Laraway. So we'll have to look at that, but
Make sure they come back that way.
yeah, and there's a lot of new, so a little bit further afield, but there's a lot of new handicap spaces that were installed at the train station on the Aboriginal lot side as well. Yeah.
Okay. So stay tuned, and we'll make sure you know when it's on the agenda next. And thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you both.
You bet.
Have a happy holiday.
Waiting.
Healthy. Amen.
Healthy to all.
Thank you. All right. We did 160, zoning. So Beth, this is in your town manager's report, right? I think the zoning board of appeals
Correct.
revised forms.
Yes, so they sent an email to the board through the building department. There's a series of forms and regulations they are updating. I don't have the dates in front of me, but they're looking for feedback. If we want from the board, I know town council has reviewed most, if not all, of the documents, and will be finishing up his review shortly. So if you as a board want to make some comments, or you want to just rely on town council's review of those documents.
They're reviewing their documents on January 16th. That's what it looks like. So I think the question is, does anybody here wish to do a deep dive into the zoning forms? Should two of us do a deep dive?
I'd like to review them. I had some technical difficulties. I couldn't get them over the weekend.
I had some challenges myself, but
Yeah.
I think if we're going to do a sort of, a select board feedback, let's just be thoughtful about two of us do the feedback and say this is it versus, Mike saw a thing and Anthea sees a thing and let's compile it. So if we want to do that, let's just agree as to who the one or two are and then try to get ahead of this January 17th deadline that they have. So.
Okay. I'm happy to volunteer.
Okay.
If anybody else wants to.
I might take a spin through it because I could get educated on site plan review.
It would be helpful because one problem that we've had with those forms is that they are almost impenetrable to a layperson. And so if
Sounds like me.
Yeah, and I don't think we can reinvent the wheel right now.
I don't know that.
Yeah. But and Mike's highlighted this a couple times fantastically. One of the problems we have with getting things developed around town and keeping things affordable is people don't know how the system works. And, I would really like to see us, maybe not right now, this iteration, but eventually have forms that anybody can pick up and understand what the process is and what they have to go through. And they know it from the start. Because one of the biggest tragedies I saw in the zoning board were people who got all the way to that point and they missed major fundamental aspects of the application and they had to go back to the beginning. And I think if we present that properly in a digestible, plain English worksheet, it'll be a huge service to our town. And a lot of our residents will do what they want to do with their property and avoid a lot of legal fees that they shouldn't have to pay in the first place.
Okay.
Whoa.
Okay. The lawyer's going to get paid, man.
I suppose we're not rewriting the forms.
Opaque is good.
If we haven't already, too, I think it'd be helpful to run it by a few consumers as well, whether they be residents that have applied recently or builders, developers, contractors that are, I'm sure the building department knows people that they deal with frequently, and just I hear a lot of complaints about people and a lot about people about the process and from people, and that's so I think that's a good place to start too, because there might be things that don't even occur to us, although they, I'm sure, occur to building department, but might be helpful.
Okay. All right. So
we'll be in touch, Michelle.
Yes, sounds good. All right, we're just getting.
If others of us, very much lay people, have comments, should we just
Please.
send them your way?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I won't have anything to add, but if having
Send them Bill's way. Or
non-expert.
you can copy me, but by all means, it could get buried. So, not that it couldn't get buried on Bill's inbox, but between the two of us,
Yeah.
let's make sure we, and let us know that you did send comments or it's coming, so we know to look for it. So, okay, we'll do some review. The next update was my update to the group as well, which was maybe right at the wrap of town meeting. Heard from 2 different members of the Dissent and Review Committee of Government Regs. And 2 things. One, inviting Select Board to a future Committee on Government Regs meeting. They meet about every other Tuesday. I think it's at 7. Don't quote me on that. But if Select Board wants to come, one or all, to one of their meetings on government regs, we can. And I think if more than 2 of us wish to show up, we can just post it as a meeting. So that was an open invitation, but I think we should be thoughtful again about if we're going, who and how many, and we can always post it as a public meeting. And then the other piece, so this open invitation, and hey, tell us when you're coming so that we can put you on the agenda. And then if there were specific bylaw sections that people thought government regs ought to be looking at. So my Article 20 about FinCom, people said, hey, can you fix this thing? And what about that thing? And I said, hey, I'm not trying to look at every single bylaw, but similar to the zoning board, I'm happy to compile the feedback on the bylaws, but does the select board as individuals or as a body have specific bylaw sections that, whether we have recommended solutions or, hey, would you look at, or this seems to be in conflict with something else, or this has come up. So I've got probably a message or a text message saying this chapter and that chapter, which I told, the most recent member, I said, let me just go back through and compile it. I'm going to be away for a week and a half. But if something came up in the course of just fall town meeting, right, or even spring town meeting, that these bylaws, they really do seem to be in conflict, or this was never clear. I think something as basic as, town meeting members serving on other committees, like we've just been doing it for years, and it says holds no other office. Like, that's a pretty basic, holds no other office exempts a town meeting member, perhaps, right? That would mean that no one could
The bylaws
run.
specifically state in the bylaws that town meeting members are not
considered
because
to
we looked
hold.
at that when the CPA stuff with Jay, and it's actually explicitly
Good. So
in the bylaws.
even just clarifying that we just know that, right? So, good. So maybe we don't need to do that one, but I wanted to say that out loud because someone actually pinged me earlier, I think last week, said, hey, remember, you're invited. I said, I'm going to bring it up on Monday's meeting. So if people do have feedback, you can share it with government regs. Colin Simpson and Megan Blackwell, the co-chairs. If we think we want to dial in to a meeting or show up in person, let's coordinate on the day and who. So I think it's a gracious invitation. We should take advantage of it. There's a lot that they're trying to get through, and there's probably some things that would just, not impacting us in our day-to-day, but just, hey, this would be great to just have these things make more sense. So.
And they're reviewing the bylaws, but not the zoning bylaws, right?
Correct.
Okay.
That is right. Specifically not doing zoning bylaws.
Yeah.
That's right. So I'm just saying that out loud. And no one has to do anything on it, but if we do want to show up, let's coordinate with their chairs.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So then any select board committee updates?
Yes, we had our semi-annual audit advisory committee.
Oh, yeah, you did last week.
Oh, that's right. So I wasn't there. Former chair wasn't there. That's right. So good news is the town has no material weakness or significant deficiencies in internal controls, and so the auditor was very pleased with our policies and procedures. I did ask Stacy and Ann to clarify something, because under note 3, investment custodial credit risk, it's about where you have your free cash, and you have, if you could have a concentration and you had, let's say you had a systemic failure of the system. I'm like, well, what's our policy? We don't really have a policy. So I asked them to come to us, come to a meeting and explain to us how much money we're talking about.
Yep.
And where is it? And should we have a policy? And if we should have a policy, what does that policy look like? Because I do think that we should understand that, because that would be, like, we do it in our personal lives. So if we do it in our personal lives, I figured we should also do it for the town.
Makes sense.
Nice.
I think Patty was working with Ann today, right, to do some research on
Getting right on that.
Takes one
past policies, and there was one from 2009. Maybe that would bear some revisiting.
I just want to point out, John and Bill showed up with the receipts tonight, like watching WinCam and like highlighting things, weather reports. I mean, set the bar pretty high, getting those receipts. Any other updates? I know we do have a few other things to vote to, but I want to just move through that. I'm going to go back to licenses, but.
Yeah, Michelle, I think I mentioned to you that hopefully on an upcoming agenda we could talk about overnight parking. I know we've heard from
Yes.
some individuals more specifically, but we've heard from a lot more, and there's a lot of conversation about it. I know other communities handle it in another way, and I don't have a silver bullet, but I think that, especially when you look at here we are, mid to late December, and, we haven't really had substantial snow events, that maybe we can tweak our policy a little bit, see how it goes, come up with some solutions for when we do have a snow emergency or when we do need access to the roads, what then happens. And but we can talk more about it, but I just wanted to flag it for, maybe, I guess, we're getting.
So is that what you're thinking? Like, I think it's, that if it's a snow emergency, then you can't park in the street? Like they do in cities or not? Or
Yeah, I don't know. I've had
different experience, right?
Yep. But I think we should, I asked Mike, he reached out when I was away, and I said, you know what, I'm not ready to put on the agenda for the 16th, but let's please say it out loud and let's think about it. And I think, similar to outdoor dining, what are some tweaks we might want to consider and do? And who do we want to hear from relative to, whether it's plowing or even just impacts of side streets and other things. So I don't want to get into it all tonight, but I do want to tee it up for a future meeting. And granted, it's the winter, but this is when we're getting to it, I think.
Wasn't the other part of that, though, some of the residents over off of Washington Street said that they felt like there was selective enforcement?
Yep, that's right. That's part of it, too.
I think the chief didn't say that was exactly true, but I don't know that to be the case. And so I just think it's the other part of the equation we should address.
Yeah, it's a big part of it. I think that I think it tends to be enforced in a little bit more of the denser areas, because that's where you just don't have room for error if you're coming through with a plow in an emergency situation, right? And we also do not just the plowing, but we've been doing pre-salting,
pre-treating,
I don't know what you call it, but anyways, and so that's been a good strategy for us, I think, especially with ice and everything like that. So as long as we're clear with people what snow emergency means and why, if we're holding off on the overall ban of it, then I think that would be helpful if we get to that point. But the if we have a snowstorm and we've got to tow 100 cars, I'm not going to have a lot of sympathy for, not just turning it back to the overnight ban, so if we do make a change. So that's it. I think people have to show that they're willing to participate in the process of, either finding a driveway to neighbors or finding, somewhere else to go with their car. I think that's what happens in a lot of communities, certainly ones that I've lived in. So just something on that. The other piece too is I was just meeting with John McConnell today about jumelage, and they had asked what our plans are for the 175th anniversary Winchester this year. I don't know what our plan is, and I'm guessing by your look you don't know either. So so
I know the Cultural Council.
Yeah.
I had spoke to Hilda about it before. I know it was something that they were considering. I'm not sure if it ever progressed beyond.
Yeah, I
the
think we should.
consideration
It probably needs
stage.
a.
What should the select board party be for the 175?
It needs to be a kind of maybe a grander thing with a larger group of people, and I think that's what's happened in the past for people that were here for the 150th. So have said that it was a pretty grand event. Whether they're lying to me or not, I don't know, but it's worthwhile for us to at least kick the tires. So we started on an email chain today, and hopefully we can get that moving as well. And in January, we're also going to be starting the CPA process and outreach and all of that before the committee gets formed. So it will be helpful now that a lot of the heavy lifting, work has been done by the group that you headed, Michelle. It really is nice to be able to just appoint people and then hand over, the rules and regulations and just say, have at it, because I think that's something that would have taken several months for a group of newer appointees to put together. So thank you. Looking forward to that process.
Great.
Just a back up to the parking piece, I think when we do bring that up, DPW certainly, but also just understanding, just thinking of other towns, like what would the restriction be on using school parking lots? Or right now it's just the Jenks. So, can somebody park at the high school lot until 6:45 and then, needs to move their car or things like that? Like how, are there other people who need to be in the room to answer some of those questions?
Good question.
Yeah, I think that goes into a broader effort of making sure we're educating people about the ban and what it means and what the possible solutions are. Because I know one thing I've heard over and over again, people who get ticketed and they don't even know the ban exists in the first place. They move to town and no one told them that this is something that we do here. It's something that we do all over New England. That's just the way it is. If you grew up here, you're used to it. If you're not, maybe you're surprised. And I've talked to people as well. Beth was one of them for sure. And, we kind of have to play by the worst case scenario in these situations because it does impact public safety. And if people don't know that there's a ban, if they don't know that there are parking concerns when there's snowfall, it could put people's lives at risk. And so whatever we do, we have to kind of keep that in mind and make sure that people are going to be cognizant and take the steps necessary if they're not going to have a ban that inspires them to do it. Something else. So I don't know if we give everyone a little welcome basket with,
Put in their water bills.
Yeah, water bills.
So many things to stuff.
Go
in.
shop at Artie's store. Don't park in the street at night.
Yes. All right. So more to come on that, and thank you. We do have to go back and approve some business licenses, and we do need to do the consent agenda. And is there something else?
Business licenses are just in one motion.
Yes, I like that. I appreciate that.
All right. So then we are going to go back actually to executive session for one item at the end of this. But if we can do licenses, maybe?
All right. I move that we approve the renewal of the following licenses on the condition of staff compliance as printed.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Then I think we do the consent agenda.
All right. I move that we approve the consent agenda as printed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we can move to adjourn from public session, and we'll say goodnight to WinCam.
One quick question on the vacant positions. I think I saw, are we also currently posting capital planning committee?
Yeah, that is already, that was posted.
Okay, so it's just not on our,
It's not on there because it's not something that has been vacant for months and months and months and months and months.
Right.
What's on there are all vacant positions.
Mhm.
So it has been posted. I think it ends the 30th.
Okay.
It's Mr. Johnson's position, and he has already responded saying yes, he wishes to be considered. He is going to be supplying a new application.
And he's not term limited?
I think he would be.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think to your point about why is it not there, I think to Patty's point, we add this as just a way to sort of socialize awareness as opposed to things that just opened up. These are ones that maybe are stale and we're still trying to fill. That's usually when it makes it into our agenda. It's not every last opportunity because sometimes the application windows are open. These are ones that can kind of been persistently open. That's what makes it to our little reminder of positions. So, okay.
Audit Advisory Committee wouldn't have to meet again until May.
Perfect. 2 times a year. It's great.
That's a lot of bang for your buck if you're looking for a resume filler,
Yes. Still there.
I actually read the audit stated pages. I move that we adjourn
to executive session. Yes, is that what we're doing?
Second.
Yes.
to executive session.
Second.
Okay.
Not to return to public session.
Not to return to public session.
Also second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. I vote yes.
Want to make sure that our viewers aren't expecting us to come back.
We're not coming back.
What, both?
Thank you, and
That's being
Kim.
generous.
We'll wrap that up.